Example 4. A USA Today article on increased interest in outdoor recreation reported an unusual increase in the sport of fly fishing. There were approximately 12.5 million fly fishermen in 2003 and 18 million in 2004. Assume that this is a linear trend. See, that's a key phrase right there. Assume this is a linear trend. If it's a linear trend, it follows an equation y equals mx plus b. Assume this is a linear trend and find the linear function that describes the number of fly fishermen as a function of years since 2003. So y is going to represent the number of fly fishermen, and x is going to represent the years since 2003. Yeah, that was pretty bad spelling even on my part. S-I-N-C-E. There we go. So y represents the number of fly fishermen. And notice those figures. The figures were all given in millions, weren't they? So that's an important thing to understand here. When we get our y value, it's actually going to be in millions. And x represents the years since 2003. Then it says, use your function to estimate the number of fly fishermen in 2010. Then use your function to estimate when the number of fly fishermen will reach 75 million. Well, let's look at the information they gave us about the fly fishermen and the time periods here. So it says in 2003, there were 12.5 million fly fishermen. In 2004, that was up to 18 million fly fishermen. Well, thinking of x as years since 2003, then in 2003, isn't the x value 0? And in 2004, isn't the x value 1? 2004 is 1 year since 2003. And so, in effect, by giving us that information about the number of fly fishermen in those 2 years, they've given us 2 points. And more importantly, one of those points is the y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is where the x is 0. They've given me the b value. My b value is 12.5 in my function I'm going to create. And how do I find the m value? Change of y over change of x. Well, that's nice. Change of x is just 1. Change of y, 12.5 to 18, that's 5.5. In that 1 year time period, the number of fly fishermen increased 5 million. So that's 5.5 million per year. That's my slope. And 12.5 is the number of fly fishermen that I started out with in my base year of 2003. And my x is supposed to be years since 2003. And I now have my linear equation, my linear function, where we can let f of x, fly fishermen, f of x is equal to 5.5x plus 12.5. And if we wanted to know how many fly fishermen, what was the question again? Use it to estimate the number of fly fishermen in 2010. How many years since 2003 is 2010? That's 7 years, isn't it? We would put 7 in place of x, multiply it by 5.5, add 12.5, which would, if we did that arithmetic, would take us to a figure of roughly 51 million. So in 2010, if the trends continue, if they continued as they had in those 2 years, which probably isn't a very good sampling, is it? To just sample what happened 1 year to the next? I mean, perhaps in 2005, the number of fly fishermen dropped down to 17 million. So it's not probably a good idea to base your situation on such a small number of data points. You probably want to have some data from a larger range of years to really produce an accurate model. But given that, in 2010, according to this model, there'd be 51 million fly fishermen. And the other question was then, use your function to estimate when the number of fly fishermen will reach 75 million. So 75 million is now the number of fly fishermen. So we have 75 equals 5.5x plus 12.5. And we now need to solve this equation. How many years after 2003 would you have to go to get to the number of fly fishermen to be 75 million? And if we solve that equation, we get x equals approximately 11.36. And so that's years since, x represents years since 2003. 11 years since 2003 would put us into the year 2014. So sometime in 2014, we will get up to 75 million fly fishermen. Somewhere in that, and what, approximately the third of the, theoretically, approximately a third of the way through the year 2014, we'd be up to 75 million fly fishermen. So here again, we were able to construct our equation because the data we were given could be used to represent 2 points. We could then use that to find the slope, and one of those points was the y-intercept, which immediately gave us our b value, and we had our linear function that relates the number of fly fishermen to the years since 2003.